I was 32 and trying to break my writer's block. I often took urban exploration trips to find inspiration. That day, I decided to visit St. Mary's Hospital, an old abandoned building in town. I'd heard the stories, but I didn't believe them. I thought it was just an old place with some history. When I stepped inside, silence engulfed me. Dust danced in the air, and the floorboards creaked under my feet. The peeling paint looked like a ghost of the past, and I jotted down notes, hoping to find something interesting. But nothing came. Writer's block still sat heavy on my shoulders. Then I heard it, a faint tapping noise somewhere deep in the building. At first, I thought it was just the old structure settling, or maybe my mind playing tricks. I pushed on and explored each room, but every corner revealed only decay. There was no inspiration here. As I went deeper into the hospital, the tapping grew louder. It seemed to come from below. I listened carefully and could swear I heard soft murmurs alongside it. A chill ran down my spine, but curiosity pushed me forward. I needed to know what was down there. Finally, I spotted a door I hadn't seen before. It was unmarked and looked heavy. The tapping was now frantic, urging me to open it. I pushed the door lightly, and it creaked open to reveal a dark staircase. My stomach twisted as I stepped closer, anxiety creeping in. But the need to discover outweighed my fear. I took a deep breath and descended the stairs, each step echoing in the silence. My heart started racing, and the murmurs grew louder, mingling with the tapping. The air felt thick and charged. I gripped the railing, my hands sweating. Something waited for me in the dark. I paused, nearly turning back, but I fought the urge. I had come this far. Then, suddenly, I heard a sharp sound. It was like something scraping against the wall, a desperate noise. My breath caught in my throat. I glanced behind me, feeling eyes on me. I wasn't sure I was alone anymore. But I pressed on. A voice broke through the whispers, soft yet haunting. "Help me." My body froze. My heart raced, and I stood in the darkness, unsure of what to do. I could feel a presence, heavy and watching. I wanted to scream, to run back up to the safety of the hospital, but my feet wouldn't move. I strained my ears, trying to decipher the words. "Help me." It echoed in my mind, drawing me closer. I didn't know who or what needed help, but that plea was clear. The tapping stopped, replaced by an uneasy silence. I felt very small in that moment, trapped in the depths of an old hospital, alone with whatever had been awakened. I was ready to turn back when I heard footsteps behind me. I whipped around, but saw nothing, just shadows. Something was
down there, and it was too late to go back now. I took a step back, heart pounding. The shadows loomed larger, but my curiosity tethered me to the spot. Whoever, or whatever, was in the darkness felt close now. I swallowed hard, trying to work up the courage to call out. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Silence, like a thick fog, wrapped around me. Then, just as I was about to turn away, I heard it again. "Help me." The voice seemed closer now. It carried a weight of despair that settled in my chest. I glanced back at the dim staircase. The way up felt like a distant memory, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to find the source of that voice. I took a hesitant step forward, half expecting a ghost or apparition to step out of the shadows. Instead, I was met with a sliver of light from an unexpected direction. To my right, near the wall, a faint glow flickered. It caught my attention, pulling me closer. It appeared to be an old lantern, its glass cracked but still functioning. I reached for it, surprised at how its warmth tingled against my cold fingers. Suddenly, the shadows seemed less daunting, illuminated by the soft light. As I surveyed my surroundings, the whispers began to swirl around me again. I turned back toward the shadows, and there it was. Something moved, just on the edge of my vision. My breath quickened. Is anyone there? I pushed my voice, trying to fill the silence with sound. "Help me," came the reply, desperate and urgent. It felt like it was right in front of me, yet I couldn't see anyone or anything. Before doubt could settle, I reached for the lantern and held it high, illuminating the narrow space in front of me. That's when I saw it. A figure. It wasn't full-formed, more of a shadow struggling to take shape. I shook my head, trying to convince myself it was just a trick of the light, but the figure remained. My heart raced so fast I could hardly think straight. What are you?" I stammered. The figure flickered and moved slightly closer, revealing a face etched with pain. It looked so familiar, yet I couldn't place it. "Help me," it repeated, its voice sorrowful. I bit my lip, wrestling with fear. How could I help? The moment stretched between us, thick with tension. The air buzzed, and I had the overwhelming urge to turn and escape, but I couldn't. There was something about that voice, that face. They seemed to reach for me in my mind. Without fully realizing it, I took another step forward. "What do you need?" My question lingered in the heavy air. The figure seemed to dissolve further into the shadows, the light from the lantern waning for a moment. Then, everything went dark. An icy chill rushed over me, and I instinctively stepped back, my heart skipping a beat. Panic surged through my veins.
As confusion clouded my thoughts, I swung the lantern around, but it flickered and dimmed, barely producing any light now. "Help me!" the voice came again, more frantic this time. I had to find out what was happening, but the shadows felt like they were closing in, suffocating. I was caught in a web of fear and curiosity, and suddenly I realized something wanted out. Something, or someone, needed my help, and I was running out of time to figure out what that meant. I shuffled backward, the darkness now an overwhelming presence. My heart was pounding in my ears, drowning out the whispers that had seemed so urgent moments before. I needed to regain control, to gather my thoughts, but fear had taken hold. Clenching the lantern tighter, I forced myself to focus. "Anyone there?" I yelled, my voice shaky but loud enough to pierce the silence. There was a heartbeat of stillness before the voice returned, sounding more desperate than ever. "Help me, please!" The echo sent a shiver down my spine. I felt the cold seep deep into my bones, but I couldn't back down now. I took a deep breath, squaring my shoulders. "I'm coming." I stepped deeper into the darkness. Each step seemed to pull me farther away from reason, thrusting me into a realm that felt both familiar and foreign. The light from the lantern barely cut through the shadows, but it was enough to show me the narrow corridor lined with cracked walls and peeling paint. Ribbons of dust floated in the air, and the stale smell of decay clung to everything. Then I heard something skitter against the floor. My pulse quickened. Was it an animal, or something worse? I focused again on the voice. It was close now, and I had to keep moving, no matter the uncertainty that clawed at my mind. Suddenly, I stumbled over something, an old rusted chair. I nearly dropped the lantern, my heart racing as I righted myself. In that moment of panic, the shadows coiled tighter around me, making my skin itch. I resisted the impulse to turn back. What if this was my only chance to uncover the truth? I gritted my teeth and pressed on. Just as I reached a door at the end of the corridor, the voice rang out again, louder and clearer. "Behind the door! You have to help me!" I glanced back one last time, half expecting to see something lurking just behind me, but the hallway remained empty. Taking a steadying breath, I grabbed the doorknob.
its surface freezing against my palm. I twisted it slowly. The door creaked open with an agonizing slowness, revealing a cramped, dark room. I peered inside, the lantern casting ghostly shadows on the walls. The air was thick and oppressive, making it harder to breathe. My instinct screamed at me to leave, but I stepped in. The moment I crossed the threshold, the atmosphere shifted. I could feel it, the weight of something ancient, something
Wrong. As I turned to scan the room, I noticed a shape huddled in the corner. It was draped in a tattered blanket, the edges frayed like the tether of my sanity. "Help me," the voice whispered again, and it hit me like a wave. It was familiar. The face that emerged from the shadows was one I recognized, but the truth behind it sent dread coursing through me. It was my brother. I stumbled back, the realization crashing over me. Fear shattered my sense of reality. I'd thought he was gone forever. Now, here he was, trapped in some hidden corner of this forsaken place, and the question loomed over me. How could I help him if I didn't even understand what had taken place? Just then, a loud bang echoed behind me, cutting through the silence. My breath caught, and I spun around to face the source of the noise. I was no longer alone, and whatever had been watching me from the shadows was ready to make its move. I felt the air grow colder, heavy with the weight of something dark. My brother's gaze was fearful, mirroring my own panic. "You have to leave, now!" he gasped, his voice trembling. "Leave? No, I'm not leaving you here!" I shouted, my voice sharp in the stifling darkness. But just as I tried to step toward him, that bang echoed again, more thunderous this time, making the walls shudder. A sharp creak followed, like a door straining under pressure. "Please," my brother pleaded, his eyes wide, darting past me. "It's not safe. You don't understand." But I did understand, at least in part. Something sinister lurked in this place, and whatever it was getting closer. My instincts kicked in, urging me to protect him, to get him out. I took a deep breath and edged toward him, the shadows reaching for me, clawing at my resolve. "Just hold on," my heart pounding. I raised the lantern higher, the flickering flame dancing as if afraid. The room was filled with odd shapes, crates, old equipment, empty medical vials. Dust cloaked everything like a shroud. I looked back toward the door, the entrance slowly closing as if it had a mind of its own. With another yank, it slammed shut, sealing us in. The sound reverberated off the walls, drowning out my brother's frantic cries. I pivoted, heart racing. "Why are you here? What happened?" His face fell, a mix of sorrow and fear. "You need to go. It's too late for me," he said, his voice cracking. "No!" I was shouting now, frustration boiling over. I couldn't accept that. There had to be a way. I took a shaky step closer, feeling the lantern's light dim. Then I noticed something etched into the wall behind him. It looked like words, or a warning. My breath caught. "What does it say?" "Don't read it," my brother warned, panic rising in his voice. But it was too late. I was already stepping closer to the wall, the light barely illuminating the faded letters. "They can't escape. They won't let you out." Chills raced down my spine, and I faltered. "What does that mean?" I whispered, my stomach twisting. Eyes darting around, I realized the shadows were shifting, pulsing, like they had a heart of their own. They lunged at us, a dark mass formed from the very corners of the room. "Run!" my brother shouted, his voice rising above the chaos. My instincts kicked in. I turned, but as I did, the lantern flickered violently, casting erratic shadows. The dark shapes loomed larger, and I felt the temperature drop. I grabbed my brother's arm, yanking him closer. "We have to go." But instead of the familiar warmth of his skin, I felt a coldness that shook me to the core.
He wasn't here with me anymore. It was like grasping smoke. "Help me!" the voice echoed all around, twisting into a laughter that curled around my ears. I spun, confusion flooding my mind. "Leave him alone!" I screamed, stepping back toward the door, but it was already blocked. That was when I saw it. The shadows parted like curtains, revealing a figure standing just beyond the threshold, a dark silhouette that seemed to draw in all light. Everything went dark. I felt the world shift around me, a darkness deeper than night. I struggled to breathe as the weight of silence enveloped my thoughts. I tried to call out, but no words formed in my throat. Then, just as suddenly as it began, a flicker of light broke through the shadows. I blinked hard, trying to make sense of what I saw. The dark silhouette stood tall, an ominous figure with no discernible features. It loomed, making the air thicken with dread. "Get away from him!" I finally found my voice, fueled by panic. My brother's empty space echoed like a void, and my heart raced with ferocity. I backed away, searching the darkness for him, hoping against hope he would appear. But then I heard it, a whisper, barely a breath. My name. "Help! Where are you?" I shouted. I turned, the lantern's light finally steadying. I strained to see the wall behind me, its warning words now burned into my memory. "They can't escape. They won't let you out." Was it true? Were we trapped here forever? My pulse quickened. "Please," the voice came again, weaker this time. I squinted into the shadow, searching for any sign of my brother. A flicker here, a distortion there, as if the very darkness was alive, twisting and writhing, just out of reach. Then I felt it. A shift in the air, a change that signaled something was coming. I turned, and in that instant, the lantern flickered again. The figure seemed to grow larger, more defined, and I caught a glimpse of what could almost be a face. A chilling, hollow visage that seemed to smile. "No!" Stumbled back, fear clawing at my throat. I had to figure out how to escape. The words on the wall echoed again in my mind, louder now. "They won't let you out." "I have to find him," I yelled as I turned, searching for an exit. I moved toward the now closed door, my heart pounding like a drum in an empty hall. It felt impossibly heavy as I pushed against it, but it didn't budge an inch. Behind me, the figure chuckled, a sound that sent even colder chills racing down my spine. "You think you can leave." "Shut up!" I snapped, desperation creeping into my voice. I hammered on the door, panic setting in. The walls seemed to close in around me, echoing my fear with murmurs of the trapped souls lost within. The whispering intensified, coming from all angles. Help. My brother. I had to find him. I forced myself to think. "There has to be another way out," I muttered, scanning the room for anything that could help. That's when I noticed a loose panel in the floor beneath a forgotten crate, dark and uninviting. It looked like it could be a passage to something below. "Hold on!" I shouted into the darkness. I dropped to my knees, lifting the panel just as the figure loomed closer. Suddenly, the darkness closed in, swallowing the light and pushing me down. "No! Stay back!" I screamed, my heart racing as I teetered on the edge of despair. And with that, I dropped into the void, the world fading away. I hit the ground hard, the breath knocked from my lungs. I struggled to push myself up, the chill from the floor seeping into my bones. The darkness pressed around me, thick and smothering. I blinked, hoping for some sign of light, or maybe even a door, but nothing changed. I took a deep breath and tried to ground myself. Focus. I needed to find my brother. "Can you hear me?" I called out, my voice trembling. "Where are you?" Silence. Just a weighty stillness bearing down upon me.
I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, though. I could almost feel eyes watching me from the shadows. Help. The whisper was faint, but it was there. My heart raced as I turned in the direction of the sound, instinctively following it. The void felt endless, but I had to push through. I stood slowly, muscles stiff from the fall. As I stepped forward, I heard the soft crunch of gravel beneath my feet. I couldn't see anything, not even my hands in front of my face, but the distressing sound grew louder. It was as if there were footsteps echoing just beyond my reach. I squinted, straining to see beyond the thick darkness. That's when I stumbled across something solid, a wall, rough and cool under my fingers. I traced its length carefully, trying to find a way through. My brother's voice echoed again, suddenly closer. "I'm
Here! Hold on!" I cried out, determination flooding my veins. I pressed into the darkness, moving away from the wall and deeper into the unknown. Every sound around me made my pulse quicken. What was lurking here with me? Moments later, a sliver of light flickered ahead, and my breath caught in my throat. I rushed toward it, the hope igniting a spark in my chest. I pushed through tendrils of darkness, and, as I neared, a new smell hit me, damp and rotten. It was the same stench I remembered from the stories about the old hospital. I finally broke into the light. It was coming from an open doorway just ahead. Peering inside, I saw a small room filled with dust and cobwebs, a single light bulb hanging from the ceiling, swaying slightly as if disturbed. "Is anyone there?" I whispered. But there was no answer. The silence pressed against me again. I stepped inside, the floorboards creaking beneath my weight. I scanned the room, and that's when I saw it. A large wooden box in the corner, its lid slightly ajar. My heart raced. I approached carefully, certain that whatever was hidden inside could help me find my brother. But when I peered in, I felt the air rush from my lungs again. The box was empty, but beneath it I saw something gleaming, a small object, half covered in dirt and grime. Reaching down, I pulled it out. It was an old key, rusty but familiar. "What do you unlock?" I murmured, bewildered. As I examined the key, I suddenly felt the air shift again, a rush of cold creeping over my skin. I turned quickly, and there it was, the ominous figure from before, standing just inside the doorway, blocking my way back. "I told you, you can't escape," it whispered, its hollow eyes fixed on me. Panic surged through me. I had to move, but as I turned, I noticed another door behind the figure. Which way would I go? My mind raced. I had to act fast. I didn't have time to think. The figure's presence closed in around me, making the air feel thick and heavy. I had to choose, and I had to choose now. I darted to the side, past the doorway, and headed toward the second door. My heart thudded painfully in my chest as I fumbled for the doorknob. It was cold and stiff under my hand. I twisted it, praying it would open. Behind me, I heard a low growl. The figure surged forward, its shadow stretching across the ground. I yanked at the knob again, and this time it gave way. I stumbled through, slamming the door shut behind me. The room I entered was small and dark, but I could see faint outlines of shelves against the walls. Dust motes floated in the thin slice of light that peeked through a grimy window high above. I pressed my back against the door, catching my breath. Just then, I heard it again, my brother's voice, clearer this time, desperate. "Help me! Where are you?" I yelled, my voice shaky but loud. I looked around, searching for a clue, a sign of him. I took a cautious step forward. "Tell me where to find you." There was silence, and my stomach twisted with fear. I scanned the shelves.
They held old medical books and rusty tools, artifacts of a time long gone. One shelf wobbled slightly when I brushed against it, drawing my attention. I pushed it, and it slid to the side with a creaking protest, revealing a narrow passage behind it. I hesitated, glancing back at the door, then took a deep breath and slipped into the passage. The air was stale, and the darkness enveloped me again, but I could hear a faint sound, like muffled cries drifting through the walls. It spurred me forward. I crawled through the cramped space, feeling my way along the wall. I kept moving toward the sound, twisting and turning through the darkness. My heart raced with a mix of fear and hope. I was close. I could feel it. Suddenly, the passage ended. I reached a small room, flickering with a strange glow. In the center stood a teetering pile of old equipment, and behind it, a figure, barely visible in the dim light. Help! It was my brother, slumped against the wall, his hands clasped over his ears. David! I rushed forward, but the moment I stepped closer, my foot hit something soft. I froze and glanced down. Chains lay scattered on the ground, their ends rusted and slick with something dark. My heart sank. "Run!" David shouted, his voice frantic. "It's coming!" I turned, ready to bolt, but a low, menacing growl filled the air. The figure from before appeared at the entrance of the passage. It crept closer, its hollow eyes fixed on us. My breath caught in my throat. I had to get us out, now. I had the key in my pocket, but the door was locked. Panic surged through me. What do I do? "Find the door," David urged, scrambling to his feet. I scanned the room, desperate for a way out, when I spotted another door on the far side, slightly ajar. Hope flickered inside me. "Over there!" I yelled, taking off toward it. The growl escalated to a roar, and I felt something brush my back. I couldn't look. I just had to keep moving. With a final burst of energy, I threw myself at the door, praying it would open. If it didn't, we might not survive whatever lurked behind us. The door flew open, and I tumbled into the next room. I landed hard on the cold concrete floor, the breath knocked out of me. The room was darker than I expected, the faint light from the other side barely illuminating my surroundings. I scrambled to my feet, ready to push the door shut, but my heart skipped as I saw David still standing in the doorway. "David, get in here!" I shouted, panic rising in my chest. He hesitated, glancing back at the advancing figure. The growl had turned into something almost human, a guttural sound that twisted my stomach. I reached out for him. "Now, please!" Finally, he joined me, slamming the door just as the figure lunged forward. I felt a rush of adrenaline. The door rattled under the weight of its force, but it held, for now. "What is that thing?" David whispered, trembling at my side. "I don't know," I replied, pressing my ear against the door. The growls had turned to scratching, sharp nails scraping against wood. But we can't stay here. I scanned the room, taking note of its contents. Old medical equipment covered the counters, and papers littered the floor. A large rusted sink stood in one corner, its porcelain chipped and faded. A chilling realization settled over me. This was the hospital, maybe a surgical room of some kind. "Do you think it's a patient?" David asked, his voice breaking. "Or something much worse?" I spotted a window on the far wall, grimy and too high to reach easily. We need to find another way out. "Look!" David pointed toward a door on the opposite end. It was partially open, revealing only darkness inside. "Let's go," I urged, moving toward the door as quietly as I could. I could still hear the figure behind us, growing more frantic. As we approached, I noticed something glinting on the floor. A metal handle, slightly protruding from the ground. It looked like a trapdoor. I bent down to inspect it. "Here, help me," I said, gripping the handle. Together we pulled, and the door creaked open, revealing a steep staircase leading down into even darker depths. A gust of stale air wafted up, carrying with it a faint, putrid scent. "What if it's worse down there?" David trembled, glancing back at the door.
"We'll deal with that when we have to," I replied, trying to sound braver than I felt. I had to be in control. We have to keep moving. With another shove, I shoved the trapdoor shut and descended the stairs, David close behind. The darkness enveloped us, and I could barely see the steps beneath my feet. Each creak echoed ominously in the confined space. It felt like the walls were closing in around us. "Do you think we'll find a way out?" David whispered, fear etched in his voice. "That's the plan," I said, but a weight of uncertainty settled heavily in my stomach. Then, from deep within the basement, came a loud crash, followed by frantic shuffling, and what sounded like frantic whispers. I froze, my heart racing again. "What was that?" David asked, backing up slightly, his eyes wide with fear. "I don't know, but it can't be good." My voice shook as we exchanged scared glances. Just then, the faint sound of a child crying
drifted up from below, sharp and chilling. It sent a shiver down my spine. Now I was filled with dread. We weren't alone down here. I hesitated for a moment, the weight of David's terrified gaze feeling like a tangible force. The child's cries echoed in the darkness, a haunting melody that tore through the silence and gnawed at my nerves. "We can't just stand here," I finally said, pushing the fear down. "If there's someone down there—" I didn't finish that thought. In the dim light, I took a deep breath and stepped down the first stair. David followed, his footsteps hesitant but unyielding. Each step felt like a commitment to whatever lay ahead. The sounds grew louder, more desperate, swirling in a symphony of fear and confusion. As we descended, I flicked my phone's flashlight on. The beam pierced through the heavy darkness, revealing damp walls and a concrete floor riddled with cracks. I could feel the chill creeping into my bones, a sense of something being wrong, deeply wrong. At the bottom of the staircase, I saw a room ahead, its entrance shrouded in shadows. The cries were clearer now, mingling with an odd sound that I couldn't quite place, like whispering, but layered and unintelligible. My heart raced, battling my instincts. I stepped into the room. The flashlight illuminated a small space cluttered with broken furniture and discarded medical equipment. But the sight that made my breath hitch was in the corner. A figure, no taller than my waist, rocked back and forth, huddled against the wall. "Is it?" David asked, his voice trembling. I wanted to say it was just a child, just someone needing help, but I could see the sallow skin, the tangled hair. The child lifted their head, and I didn't recognize the face. Eyes wide and unblinking, they stared straight at us, vacant and hollow. "What's your name?" I asked gently, hoping to coax some clarity from the confusion. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it pointed toward an old wooden cabinet on the other side of the room. My gut twisted. Something was hidden there. "Should we check it out?" David whispered, his voice barely audible. Before I could answer, the cries stopped, replaced by eerie silence. I nodded, heart pounding as I approached the cabinet. With each creak of the door, I felt as if I was unearthing something that should stay buried. Inside, I found old surgical instruments, rusted and covered in layers of dust. But nestled among them was something glinting, like a medallion wrapped in frayed cloth. As I reached for it, a cold breeze swept over me, and the whispers intensified. They were no longer just murmurs. They formed an angry chorus, growing louder, suffocating. "Get back!" David shouted suddenly, shoving me aside. I turned to see the child's face contorting into something monstrous, eyes glowing with a feral rage. It lunged at us, and I barely dodged in time. "Run!" I screamed, grabbing David's hand. We bolted back towards the stairs, but the whispers wrapped around us, suffocating, as if the darkness was alive. I could hear the child, whatever it had become, snarling behind us. Suddenly, the lights flickered, illuminating the staircase just as something cold grasped my ankle.
I screamed, trying to pull away, but the hold tightened. That's when I saw it. Emerging from the shadows was a figure, something humanoid, twisting and writhing, its face obscured, but its intent clear. It was coming for us. I fought against the icy grip on my ankle, my panic surging as I clawed at the air. "David, help!" I shouted, struggling to free myself. The darkness throbbed and pulsed around us, suffocating and consuming. I glimpsed the child, transformed into a grotesque creature, its contorted face twisting through the shadows. "Let go!" David yelled, yanking at my arm as the figure behind me lunged again. My heart raced, drowning out the whispers that had suddenly turned into a cacophony of panic. With one final desperate gesture, I broke free. I stumbled forward, slamming into David. The child thing shrieked behind us, its chilling cry mingling with the howling sound of the dark. I couldn't look back. I seized David's hand and sprinted back up the stairs, our footsteps echoing off the damp concrete. As we burst into the narrow hallway above, I dared to glance over my shoulder. To my shocked horror, I saw the figure surge up the stairs after us, its glow illuminating the darkness like some mythic nightmare come to life. "Go!" I screamed, pulling David forward. We barreled through the door we had entered only moments before, racing down the corridor of that haunted hospital, the weight of the figure's pursuit roaring behind us like a tempest. The air was thick with dread, yet all I could focus on was our escape. Every step reverberated through my body, urging me to move faster. "Where do we go?" David cried, panic rising in his voice as we reached another tangle of hallways. I bit back my own fear and pointed down a dimly lit passage. "That way!" We tore down the hallway, the shadows lying in wait, thick and oppressive. I didn't know what was real and what was just my imagination. Everything felt wrong, twisted in a liminal space drenched in despair. The child thing's cries echoed behind us, somehow mingling with the whispers that urged us onward. Then my foot caught on something, and I fell hard to the ground. "No!" David cried, turning back to grab me. I yanked myself up, shocked, but there was nothing behind me, only shadows consuming the space I had just glimpsed. "Keep going," I urged, pulling us back together. My eyes darted frantically, searching for salvation, a way out of this damn place. On instinct, I turned towards the nearest door to the right and thrust it open, praying it wouldn't lead into more confusion. We stumbled into a room that looked untouched by despair, yet the air held its weight. My phone's flashlight flickered dead, the dark swallowing its last flicker of light. My chest tightened. "Here!" I shouted, pointing at the window high above us. "If we could climb out, we might escape." David hesitated, the fear etched on his brow. "It's too high." "Do you want to stay here?" The growls and whispers were escalating, coiling tightly around us. Without giving him time to respond, I grabbed a chair from the corner and shoved it beneath the window. "Get up!" I scrambled onto the chair, but before I could pull myself up, I slammed my palm against the window, and it shuddered ominously. Behind me, the door rattled, and I sensed the darkness regrouping, ready to burst forth. David quickly joined me, scrambling to reach the ledge as I pushed him on. "I can do this," I said softly but firmly, hoping I really could. With a final push, I pulled myself up and squeezed through the window, the cool air hitting my face like a splash of cold water. "Come on!" I reached back to help David. Just as he began to climb through, another guttural roar shook the building, rattling the window frame. "Go!" I urged, panic bubbling in my throat as the shadows surged closer, the darkness tearing through the door like paper. David finally scrambled through the window, landing on the ledge below with a thud. I was about to follow when I heard it, the desperate plea we had heard before. "Help me!" echoed out of the very walls of the hospital, wrapping around us like a shroud. But I wouldn't turn back. I took a breath and pushed myself through the window, landing hard beside David.
We rolled to the ground, the chill biting into my skin. Adrenaline surged, and we ran for what felt like our lives, tearing away from the nightmarish hospital. As we reached the safety of the street, I dared a glance back. The building loomed dark and silent, shrouded in shadows. But just for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of light inside, a glimmer of desperate souls still trapped and lost in the echoes of despair. Did we make it? David's voice broke into my thoughts, filled with panic and hope. I think so, I stammered, but the words felt heavy on my tongue. We stood shivering under the streetlights as reality settled in. The whispers faded, but the chill remained, lingering like smoke on my skin. I took a deep breath, but the scent of decay still clung to the back of my throat. I don't know what we face down there, but it doesn't feel over, I finally said, feeling the weight of questions pressing on my chest. I don't think it might ever be, David replied, his gaze still fixed on the hospital silhouette. I felt the air thrum with unspoken fears and uncertainty, the questions that might never have answers. But in that moment, beneath the pale starlight, I whispered into the darkness, "We escaped, for now."
And I couldn't shake the feeling there were things in shadows that would always watch and wait, lingering at the edges of understanding, a sinister reminder of the memories locked within the walls of St. Mary's Hospital.